It must be Thursday.
It's Thursday.
You know, Marisa, thank you for being my co-host tonight. Marisa from IDE and Edquidity, one of our client solution specialists. You know, I've been thinking that it's so fun that we have this Christmas Eve show. And we also had a show on the first night of Hanukkah. So it was kind of fun that we are celebrating the holidays.
And you have New Year's next week.
Next week is New Year's Eve. Woo, woo, start it with us. And so I've been thinking that this is the time of year when everybody kind of slows down for a minute, pauses, and just starts to notice things around them. And I was noticing that it just looks so beautiful when you see raindrops on roses. And I know that Carrie, who's our director, loves, she takes care of kittens. She fosters kittens, and I know she loves whiskers on kittens.
And when it's getting colder, it always makes me think of bright copper kettles and putting on those warm woolen mittens.
And, you know, everybody has been looking at the sky to see the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. And if you look and you see with the moon out, you can sometimes see the wild geese flying with the moon on their wings.
These are a few of our favorite things, as is this show.
Hey,
right?
Welcome to Learning Unwrapped. Yeah, I hope we're corny enough for you, but we just had to set the tone for our show, which is called My Favorite Things. And
you're singing along with us.
Yes. And we have a lot of favorite things to talk about tonight and get into learning. But before we do, Marisa, I think you have some fun, a favorite thing to share.
I do. I have a huge favorite thing. My favorite thing is an entire state. Actually, I just moved to California and opened our California office out here, located in Dana Point, California. So California is my favorite thing. Our new office is my favorite thing. Dana Point is my new favorite thing. Very exciting.
And I think we have a picture of your view from the IDE office.
Pretty soon we can hopefully get people out there to see it, but yeah, very, very exciting.
But in the meantime, thanks for carrying it off by yourself.
Yeah, of course.
You're doing a great job. And I've got a couple of favorite things. I've got the just put up on YouTube the my video called the 5-5-5-5 to Thrive. 5 different ways to think about using PBL, 5 different ways to think about using video, 5 different ways to think about instructional activities, and 5 different ways to think about synchronous instruction. And if you put it all together, you'll have a classroom that allows you to have learning anywhere, anytime. And that's the title of my new book. Very excited because you can pre-order it now. It is Reinventing the Classroom Experience, Learning Anywhere, Anytime. So, and this show, obviously, so it's been a lot of fun, a lot of good things happening lately, a lot of things that, are my favorite things. And another one of my favorite things is International Broadcast Media TV, because those are the fine people who have put this network together and are allowing us to have this show. So that's a wonderful thing. And then it's been fun every week so far. I mean, this is only our 3rd show, but to bring together some of my favorite people and let's just watch how the conversation flows. So I have 3 of my favorite people tonight to bring on. And before I do, Marisa, did I forget to announce anything?
I don't think so. I think we're okay.
All right. Well, then here we go. Our first guest is a woman that I met back in 1995. You weren't supposed to bring her in yet. I got to do the whole Take her back out. Backstage. In 1995, when I was getting ready to write my doctoral thesis and doing a dissertation, and I said to my mentor, I want to do a dissertation on consulting, and I want the best consultant out there to study. And behold, she put me in touch with Dr. Benekalik, and I had the pleasure of studying her as my dissertation subject, and found out then she was just an amazing person who I have adored all of these years. She is now, let me get the title right, Benna. She is she's the co-author of numerous books, including Nurturing Habits of Mind in Early Childhood, Students at the Center, and then we'll talk about her latest book. She is the co-founder and co-director of the Habits of Mind Institute, Please welcome Dr. Benicallick.
Hi.
How are you?
Welcome.
So am I supposed to say something now?
No, that was Maurice's cue to ask you about something you learned this week.
Okay, go ahead.
Anna.
Hi, Marisa. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you again. What's something that you've learned this week?
Oh my gosh, it's too hard to even think of one good thing, but there is something that I learned. And well, it's not learned that I'm learning, but that would be a very typical thing of me, is it's always ongoing. So something that kind of really struck me that I'm trying to pay attention to, and that is I'm really in that space of thinking about the whole idea of what we're doing about courageous conversations. The students are pushing us. We're trying to get those conversations going. And I'm learning how to really think carefully about what it looks like to really have a courageous conversation. What are some of the skills that you need? What are some of the things you need to be thinking about? And as a result, and of course, the whole question is around, equity, social injustice, racial issues. And so I have found this wonderful book, Raising Student Voices by Catherine Schutten. And it's just a wonderful book. And I'm really learning from the adolescents who wrote argumentative essays around critical issues and their perspectives. So that's what's absorbed me, and I've been paying a lot of attention to it.
That's wonderful. Give us the name of the book again.
It's called Raising Students' Voices, and it's by a woman named Catherine Schutten.
Excellent. Awesome. We'll have to get that.
It's great. It really is great. I think you would love it. And she works for New York Times, and this comes out of looking at some of the articles that get provoked by the New York Times, and then some of the ways that we begin to think about how do adolescents, specifically as adolescents, respond to this and develop argumentative essays. So I'm proposing and planning right now a workshop where I'm inviting both students and teachers to the workshop to hassle with a conversation around the question of do teenagers get the right to vote? And it should be very interesting and exciting.
That's awesome. Yes.
That's so cool.
I'm with the kids. And also, you have a new book out. Tell us about the new book.
Well, Art Costa and I, and you know that we have this long history of writing books together. And so we thought about it and we said, we've written about so many things. We've written about classroom. We've written about early childhood. We've paid attention to a lot. We've written about assessment. And we decided that one of the things we've not written about that we need to pay closer attention to is leadership. Because when you think about it, in order to have a culture in which habits of mind really thrive, and I think you know so well because your work and our work are so simpatico when we work together in as many ways as possible, that the culture for habits of mind is really developing a culture for thinking. But it means, what is the leader's role in all of this? And so we started looking at it, and we started by saying, what is the leader's role? And we started realizing there is not just a single leader. It's a distributed leadership. And so we said, there are lots of people who take leadership. What does it look like? So we focus on student leadership. We focus on teacher leadership, parental leadership, administrative leadership. And the big idea behind it is leadership is not about the position. It's about the activities and behaviors that suggest that you are modeling leadership in everything that you do.
I love that you've built it around the 16 habits of mind. It's like habits of mind for leaders, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's our drumbeat.
That is what you do, right? All right.
I love too about how that empowers teachers to be thinking about themselves as leaders as well. They're
Absolutely.
not, it's not just geared to one group of people. Anyone can read that and think, how can I step up?
What's so interesting too, Marissa, is to really suggest to teachers, you don't have to give up teaching to be a strong leader. And I think that's something that we've often, kind of lived with the misunderstanding that the only way you become a leader is if you make a positional move. And so we're suggesting it's really about how you behave.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you for joining us here tonight for the conversation.
Happy to be here.
You are one of my favorite people from from long time ago.
I'm honored. I always was honored from the day that you asked me if you could shadow me. And I really always felt like sometimes you were right behind me. It was like if I stopped short, you would fall over. It was like, he is right there with me all the time.
What are you saying? What are you saying? I remember one time when I was I'm writing copious notes because I'm capturing everything. And Benna turns and she says, so what do you think about, because whatever they were talking about with the administrators, and she's like, and what do you think about this? And I looked at her and I'm like, I have no idea what you're even talking about. I'm just writing everything. Like, don't ask me questions. I just have to.
I'm coming in.
I just have to script it, you know?
It was wonderful because there's so much that you do instinctively that you don't pay attention to cognitively. And for you to put that into a space that really showed me what I do was really remarkable. And I was so honored that you did that. So I thank you for that.
It was fun. You're welcome. Thank you for being my subject of study. Another one of my favorite people who I met, only about a year and a half ago or so. We actually met at a conference. And I remember that we had this, it was a conference where it was almost like Match.com. They hooked you up so that they would say, who is this district leader? And at the time, she was a district leader in Dallas. Who's this district leader that wants to meet with this company? And does this company want to meet with this district leader? And they put you together. And we had a meeting set up for, I forget what day, but let's say it was a Friday. And all of a sudden on Thursday, we see her come into the booth and kind of look around. And we're like, Shannon Terry, right? And she's like, yes. And we're like, you're tomorrow. And she was like, oh, and I knew I loved her immediately. I'm like, anybody who's roaming through the world with like, where do I need to be next? And when she came and sat with us, we were talking and I was showing her some blog posts and she said, oh, you wrote this blog post on my birthday. And I looked down and it was my birthday. And I said, oh my God, we share the same birthday. We also figured out that we share the same Myers-Briggs type, which is ENFP, which explains why both of us are usually walking around going, where am I supposed to be now? So please welcome one of my newer favorite people, Dr. Shannon Terry. And Shannon she has left Dallas with tears in her eyes, of course, but she had to take on the opportunity to be the Division Director of Program Integration Strategy at the Texas Education Agency.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. So Shannon, what have you learned this week?
Well, this week I have been reading a book called Enchanted Objects. So I have been learning about how we make ordinary objects extraordinary. So I've learned about, the book is written, it's actually a book and it's written by David Rose. And he talked about all of these things students in our university settings are doing related to enchanted objects. And so one of them, just to give you an example, is a student made a coat that for the number of likes you get on Twitter or the number of likes you get on Facebook, the coat expands to give you a hug. So every time you're liked, you have a coat that hugs you. Another example is an umbrella. And the umbrella actually listens to the radio to know if it's going to rain outside. So as you're leaving, if it's in your line of vision, it's blinking at you. So if you look out and it's sunny, it knows better than you. And so you grab that. And the last one I'd share that really is, I'm looking for it for Christmas presents, is a frame that when you walk past the frame, like if I have a picture of Nancy, and I have them all over my house, of course. I'm working on it. These will be replaced soon. But if you walk by a picture and it's a picture of Nancy and Nancy walks by her frame because I bought her the frame, then my frame lights up. So I know that Nancy's near the frame. So it gives this feeling of being together.
Wow. So there's no video. It's just that it senses that I have come by, like I pick up the frame and say like, oh,
mm-hmm.
and it lights up on your end. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a great 2020 gift, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
far away. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is really cool. So it's good. And you at the Texas Education Agency, are you guys shut down for the week? Do you have to not go into work or?
We actually are off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week. But other than that, we're working all of the days in December. So, we have 5.5 learners here in Texas, 5.5 million.
Oh, I was going to say 5.5.
Yeah. It's been a rough year. And it has been a rough year, but we have 5.5 million Texas learners. And so we stay busy for them.
Yeah, keeping things going. Well, it's great. It's great to have you here. Thank you. And then I'm going to introduce you to my newest friend. We work with the New York City schools, and there's a grant called the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant, which is all about how we extend students' days and build more of a community learning center, after school programs, et cetera. And this year, we were introduced to Phipps Neighborhoods, which is an organization we'll learn more about that is working with the schools and with us. And so the man who is the director of community schools, the director of community schools for Phipps Neighborhoods is Joe Vereen. So let's bring on Joe. And Joe, I only met Joe a couple of months ago, right, Joe?
Yeah, we started communicating in November.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
tell us a little bit so that all of our audience knows. Tell us a little bit more about Phipps Neighborhoods.
Phipps Service Neighborhoods is a social service organization. We work with pre-K, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. We also have community centers that reside in school buildings and also reside in our public housing units here in New York City. And we also have work development programs and various social services from financial literacy to senior housing. So we kind of do from like the cradle to the grave, and we kind of like touch at all points. And our motto, our hope is to help people rise above poverty here in the South Bronx in New York City.
That's wonderful.
So as you're doing all of those wonderful things, what's one thing you've learned this week?
So one thing I've learned this week is about gratitude. I'm usually in my self-care, social, emotional bubble. And this week it's been gratitude. I've been reading this book, Thanks, How the Art of Happiness or the Practice of Gratitude Helps with Happiness. And just like little things in your life, taking time to appreciate them, log them down, write about them, how these things can bring you happiness, especially in a time like COVID, where everything is always changing and not looking like we're having the best. But like this week, we've got the vaccine out there. So little things are happening to move things forward. So being grateful for things such as that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I feel like with everything going on this year, it would be fun to talk about some of our favorite things that have happened this year. And, let me just throw it out there. Who wants to start? One of your favorite things in learning.
I can start.
All right, go ahead.
In my role, I get to work with teachers and help them create learning environments for their students. And of course, this year, a huge focus has been trying to master this art of hybrid learning. And my favorite thing, I think it's kind of general, but it's been so cool to work with teachers and see them overcome some of their fears and really push themselves in terms, like they didn't get the choice. They weren't asked if they wanted to try all these new things, but they were forced into it. And some teachers that I've been working with have just been doing amazing things, and they've impressed themselves. And that's been the coolest thing for me, is working with them and hearing their stories. And they're like, I never would have ever tried doing this a year ago, and now I want to do more. And whether it's tech stuff or whether it's engaging your students and talent-based learning, it's just all been really, really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an opportunity in the midst of all of this.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Shannon, what's coming to your mind?
Well, as I listen to Marissa and I think about Joe and this attitude of gratitude, I'm an eternal optimist. So I was looking for the silver lining. And it's been exciting at the agency to really envision what the future of education could be. And while the catalyst for the change is not something any of us would desire, the opportunity to come together as a community, not just in the educational sector, but also in the tech sector, our businesses, organizations that are all a part of our community are coming together to really examine education and view education in a different lens. And so I really spend a lot of time being thankful for the opportunity to be part of a larger group of people who are thinking about what will be, what does this mean for our students? What does this mean for our educators? What does this mean for our communities? And how can we leverage something that's been traumatic for many and make something good come from it for our students and our next generation, actually.
Yeah. As you said, it's a strange catalyst, and I keep telling everyone, because I'm in the business of consulting to change schools to bring about a different way of looking at education and instruction. And of course, there's always that idea of trying to move everyone to, especially when you look at some districts where they're like, hey, we're doing fine. Like, why should we change? And I think that the pandemic has thrown everyone into change. And I keep saying to superintendents, this is it. You got one shot. It's like January to June, make it happen, because this is your opportunity to change. Once we go back to school, we kind of lost it. So we kind of have to make it count. And I would like to, go ahead.
I was going to say, isn't it amazing what we can do when we do it together, right?
Yeah. It takes a big village.
It sure does.
Or something the size of the state of Texas or something, right?
Of course, yes.
But, and I do want to introduce too that we do have a live audience of people who are watching and spending a little time with us on this Christmas Eve. And so Boyd, who is our director behind the scenes, is going to start putting up some of their comments as they go, and also any questions that they have. So I would like to turn this show into a big conversation between the fabulous guests that we have on stage and the folks who are watching from home. So we want to get some of their comments up as we go along too. And I'm going to go over to you, Benna, and say, what are you thinking about in terms of favorite learning experiences this year?
Well, gosh, so much has happened. All I can say is, I don't know about favorite, but the big umbrella.
All you can say is, thank God 2021 is coming. Is that?
That's it. That's my favorite. And because of my age, I'm quickly in line for the vaccine. So I'm going to get that.
Amazing.
Now, I was thinking about it, and I think what I'm excited about is that I'm continuously curious, continuously learning, and I am so appreciative of all the invention and innovation, just as you said. There's so much going on, and it's so exciting. And I also realize that people are at a dead stop in terms of, I don't know how I'm going to do this. It's like you don't have that option anymore. It's like you've got to really think about what role technology is playing in your life, in the lives of the kids, in the way that you're working. And what I find interesting is trying to continue to cultivate the reimagining of going back to school. What I'm seeing now, for example, which I found very interesting, is teachers are saying to me when I have like these, meetings with teachers, and they say, well, but the thing is that I feel like I have to do a lot more direct instruction because, now I have them back in the classroom and they're wearing masks and they're 6 foot distancing and they can't work in groups. And so the question of, well, how did you manage to get them into Zoom rooms when you were trying to get them into groups previously? And is there anything that suggests that technology is limited to remote learning exclusively? Or are there ways that you can begin to think about this so that you're actually developing the hybrid classroom in your classroom? What would that look like? And of course, I think the work that you do is so much about that, Nancy. Mm-hmm. But I find that it's really fascinating to me to watch how people are kind of scared once again about the idea that they won't be in total control. And they're forgetting how much kids can really do when you really develop their thinking. So since my work is all about habits of mind and the cultivation of thinking, I'm finding that when students begin to learn about the habits of mind, what they're doing is they're beginning to say inside their heads, you know, this isn't working. What habit can I use to help me to make this work better? Oh, maybe I need to be thinking flexibly. What else can I try? So marrying the kind of feeling state of, I don't know where I am and what I'm doing, to the effective thinking state of, my disposition can be not give up, but which habit will help me to keep pursuing.
Right. And that's very cool. When you build that in to the point where the students just, they have these habits. And the question is, when do I implement each? What do I draw on now, et cetera? And before I comment more on that, I have to say that, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, because it's been a while, Ahava Steinbauer is coming to us from Northern Israel. So what time is it over there? And I know that she had retweeted about this show, Benna, because she is a big fan of yours.
Oh, how nice. Thank you.
So I've been saying to schools as well, you know, schools serve two purposes. One is academic learning, and the other is socialization. And you will be making a big mistake if on the 1 or 2 days that students are in school, you spend your time offering them lessons, because they can get all those lessons, you know, on the internet, at home, et cetera. They need the socialization, the interaction. They need to learn to listen to one another, to respond to one another. They need to learn. And even I love your idea of, like, let them be in a breakout room while they're all physically in the classroom, if that's what it takes. But, you know, we have to realize that they're not getting that socialization at home in front of the computer as much as they're getting it when they're in the physical classroom and seeing you face to face. So they get some of it, you know, at home, but I think we can't afford to make school only about the lessons.
Nancy, could I interject something here? This story has reminded me of another story, and it's about a time that I stood before teachers, and I asked the teachers, I said, tell us all, you know, we were doing a 6 weeks review, and I said, tell us all of the things that you were able to teach this 6 weeks, and papers were flying everywhere, and there was energy in the room, and it just went on and on and on. And I was like, okay, let's stop. We took a break. Everyone came back in. It was a huge aha moment for everyone in terms of Dr. Kellett's comment about, you know, being learner-centered and the agency we want to develop in our students. And so then the next question we posed was, now everyone write down all the things your students learned.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a struggle. And so it was a defining moment for that group of teachers and myself in terms of the comments that Ben had just made.
Powerful. And we have an answer here. It is 12:30 a.m. So bless you for watching us from Israel at that hour. And I also, I'm gonna jump over to you, Joe, to have you also share. But we did have a question here. Are you related to Ben Vereen?
So normally I tell people he's my uncle. And if they believe me, I let them believe me. If they question it, then I say, no, I have no idea. Once I have never met him, but I did meet his daughter one time in New York City.
It's cool.
So, what is one of my favorite things is growth mindset through the art of collaboration. So in our world, in our after school, in our social services, as a part of everything that was happening with COVID, we kind of had to reimagine what we're doing so we could reach the biggest population. So normally we would work in silos, and different programs would work within their own program, but we all came together. We created teams that are people that maybe had not worked together ever before, to create a new way of learning, a new remote platform, so that we could work with say 10 schools at one time, as opposed to, working with our own individual schools and parents. And this allowed for us to learn from each other, which is kind of like those habits of mind that Benna is talking about, learning from each other, where I may not be strong at, somebody else on my team might be really great at it, so I can learn from them, and then deliver the highest quality of services to the kids and the families that we work with. So, and always remembering growth mindset. I might not be good at this internet teaching thing yet, but if I keep trying, if I don't give up, I will get better. And there's nobody sitting there saying, oh, you must do this, you must do that, you must do this. Hey, try this. Hey, try that. See what works for you, because it's very much an individual style, just like being a teacher or a group leader or whoever working with kids. You try on things, you see what works for you, and you keep it. What does and what doesn't, you let it go. And so that's been what I've really enjoyed watching with the staff and other people in my organization and myself. And then having that kind of be reinforced through the trainings that we've been doing and the professional developments that we've been doing with IDE, with Nancy's staff and everything. It's been really amazing.
And tell us, I was invited to, and I was able to stay for most of it, but then I had to get ready for my show last week. But you had a holiday extravaganza where you did videos of all the kids and what they've been doing in the after school programs. So share a little bit about, how do you feel kids are learning in this remote environment, and what would be some of their favorite things?
So the show we had was our winter holiday celebration, and what we tasked the staff with was to talk to your kids about how they celebrate the holidays, and if that's changing at all this year or not. And in the process, make sure that we kind of touch on the different ways that different communities celebrate. So, not only Christmas, we also had Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and Three Kings Day. And I noticed after we got through all of that during the show that we're missing the winter solstice. So I spoke a little bit about the winter solstice, and things such as that. And it's basically a project-based model where, here's something we want you to explore, think about, read, find out about, and come back and tell us what you've learned. And then incorporating that into how the kids view that, and simple videos that they recognize. One of the videos that was made was kind of based in the idea of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and how to incorporate your version of that to showcase what you've been learning. We also had one of our staff people that was all about creating hats that symbolize the different holiday traditions. And so there was like a hat fashion show, which also had interspersed with like the history behind the particular celebration that was happening. So what I see the kids getting out of this, their favorite things, I think kids, although often feel terrified of performing, they love to perform. They love to show you what they know. And so to see a kid get on screen or get on a stage and just present something that they've learned is, I think, the most valuable and impactful thing that we can do, and offer that for our kids as chances for them to step to the forefront and shine. It might be that kid that doesn't say much in class, but in front of a microphone, he or she becomes a brand new person. So that is kind of like what I try to push forth with the staff and my colleagues, is giving chances for you to shine like that.
That's cool. Any other thoughts from the crowd?
Well, Joe brought up hats, so I did bring one, Nancy. You said props were allowed.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, it has your name on it and everything. I love that.
Yeah. So, but
wait, here we go.
Did you have one?
You know it.
Oh, it is almost the same. Can you believe that?
Because,
I know.
Once
I
again,
can absolutely believe that.
Wow. But I did see a comment come across encouraging our teachers and saying we believe in our teachers. And the hats are really symbolic in this day. They're wearing so many hats. in situations where our teachers are instructing students in what we say is remote or distance, or in your last show, virtual presence. They have a lot going on around them, and yet they're remaining focused and staying the course for our students. So thank you, teachers.
Thank you, teacher.
Yeah. Thank you. One thing that Joe said that stuck out when he was talking about collaboration, I was thinking about how, we've always been trying to get our students to collaborate, right? Like collaboration's a thing that we talk about all the time. And this has been building on favorite things. This has been a year where teachers are seeing like the fruits of their collaboration and seeing how much they need each other. And how cool it is when, like I've been encouraging the teachers I'm working with to be really obvious about that with your students, right? Like, hey, this is what I'm doing to be successful. This is all new for me and this is scary, but I'm trying things and I'm working with Mr. Anderson. And, it's like, let's model that collaboration so that our students know how important it is, because we lean on each other when things get tough. Mm-hmm. And we've always done that, but how cool is it this year to be able to show our students that
I've been
a year that we need it.
Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, just today I've been working with Giselle Martin-Kniep and Allison Zamuda, and we've been trying to write a continuum of collaboration and how you would be self-assessing. Because, there are times we were trying to say that if you're not in the moment of collaboration, that doesn't mean that you're not a good person. It doesn't mean that you, need to jump right in. And we were trying to honor people who need a little think time, a little reticence, and a little bit of reflection before they get into the collaborative experience. And so we were trying to design a continuum that said, it's okay wherever you are, as long as the ultimate value is that we will all be thinking interdependently in a way that's going to benefit our work. But I was just thinking about how often we misinterpret kids when they're not real active, that they're not thinking or they're not engaged, when often they're very engaged, but it's not their way to just jump right in and say what engages them. So anyway, it was to kind of take a beat and think about it. And collaboration is critically important for today's world. Team playing, being able to do that, but really honoring the fact that there's a readiness for teamwork.
I love that. And especially the idea that some children, well, I think it goes back to, we like to use the Myers-Briggs to get a sense of, and give teachers a sense of how each of us reacts in the world. And I'm a big E, which means that I'm a very extroverted thinker. I think with my mouth. I will just start talking and work my way through it. And I remember Tanya Bosco, who's our executive vice president, she's actually going to be co-hosting with me next week. She's a very strong I. And so one day she was in my office and she'd asked me, could I give her some thoughts about a particular leadership workshop she was going to be doing? And I start, talking away, and I notice she's sitting back, not taking any notes. And then about 15 minutes into the conversation, she picks up her pad and starts writing. And I said, kind of funny, I've been talking for 15 minutes. Why did you start to write now? And she goes, oh, you know how you are. You have to talk your way all through it. And I find about 15 minutes in, you start to really get to what it is you want to do. Otherwise, my notebook is all scratched out because you keep saying, no, on second thought, do this. So, and yet, if you wanted, a funny joke last week for any of you who saw, Boyd was my co-host, and he is also a strong I. And I said to him at one point, unless I stop talking and give the floor to Boyd, we're not going to hear from him. And he's like, but I'll have a ton of great comments right after the show. And that is what we have to tap into in teachers and students, right? Being able to, for teachers who are big E's, if you ask a question and the student doesn't answer, you're looking at them like, come on, and yet also if you're a big I and you start to talk and a student is jumping right in, you're thinking like, what? So it's important that we recognize that.
Well, I think also it's because of the judgments sometimes we make as teachers, that we have some, assumptions that we make when someone isn't active. Oh, they're not engaged, they're not interested or whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking, that we want to create a safe enough space in which you can kind of wait a little bit before you do, and that we want to make it a trusting space in which it's safe to take a little risk and hear your voice. And that's a big deal. I agree with you. I think the Myers-Briggs tells us very clearly that, you know, we have to respect the fact that some people, you know, take a little while to have some think time.
Right. And I love what you just said is like the end of assumptions. Like that should be a theme going forward, right? How do we make 2021 the year of the end of assumptions?
Or checking your assumptions.
Checking your assumptions.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and also giving kids multiple ways to communicate. Like
Right.
not every kid is going to communicate in a, you know, a verbose tit for tat conversation. Some
Right.
kids might want to sit and journal and draw or whatever, and giving space for all of these different needs of communication.
And that's going to be that's part of Universal Design for Learning. That's going to be one of our upcoming shows in the new year. I can't believe it's already 5:40, so I have to pause because it's usually halfway through where I pause to thank International Broadcast Media TV for the show, and Nick and Kim, who are the executive producers. And I encourage you all to go to ibmtv.tv. That's ibmtv.tv. to see all of the great shows. There are like 70 some shows that are running now, which is awesome. And it's also the time that we say, what's in your mug? So I'm going to ask the audience to please share with us what's in your mug tonight. Now, I've chosen a special mug because 2 years ago, my mom went on to be with the Lord. And in memory of her, my mother was an animal rights activist and loved cats and loved the big cats. So this is a snow leopard. And also, if you asked her what one of her favorite things at Christmas was, it would be eggnog. And that is what's in my mug tonight. Marisa, what is in your mug?
Well, I obviously had to go with the Edquidity or IDE mug, right? Of course. We just got these at our holiday party. So this is my newest mug. So I had to showcase my newest mug. And I have this like a peppermint licorice kind of tea in here. It's really good.
Sounds delicious. Yeah, now that we have two companies, we had to like do the double-sided mug. I can't wait till we open a third company next year, and then, you know.
It'll be hard. We'll need a different mug.
Exactly. Joe, what is in your mug?
So this is a mug that I got at my last job. The staff gave it to me upon my leaving. And it has this cool quote: "The secret of success is to be ready when your opportunity comes," by Benjamin Discaro. And I'm drinking a green tea with honey.
Right.
Love that.
And Benna, what is in your mug?
Okay, this is a beautiful handmade mug. It's pottery. And my granddaughter when she was studying at Bennington, we went up to visit her, and she does a lot of work with pottery, and she took us to this fabulous place. And so, of course, because I always remember the beautiful time we were there, I love this mug. And what's in it is something I also love, which is a glass of white wine.
Oh, what kind?
Oh, Chardonnay, of course.
Chardonnay. Okay. Very nice, very nice. And Shannon, what's in your mug?
My mug is, what's in my mug is The World Awaits, or what's on my mug, The World Awaits. And what's in my mug is salted caramel tea with brown sugar.
Whoa.
And it is delicious. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Very
I never
good.
thought of salted caramel tea before.
Whenever you have a candy craving, just go for the salted caramel tea.
And Shannon, you
That
got a
sounds
shout out
delicious.
before from Family Reunion saying, hello, Dr. Terry. So now they're sharing, we've got pumpkin spice latte.
Yum.
And don't say just a Starbucks mug because, you know, they might be watching. Starbucks mug.
It's the Starbucks mug.
All right, so let's pick up our conversation.
So I was curious, we've been talking about our favorite things for this year. And I think it'd be cool for us to kind of talk about what are some of the things that there's a lot of things we're looking forward to in 2021. But as we're, anticipating change and progress, what are some of the things that you're hoping for or looking forward to in 2021?
That is a great question. And my first response is one that I feel like should be external and shared. And I will be really transparent and tell you that there's been a lot of introspection during this time that we've been home and social distancing. And so I've really spent a lot of time figuring out who I really am, right? What is my identity? Nancy, you mentioned earlier that we shared the same alphabet, right? So I've been looking at thinking profile surveys. I've been looking at character surveys, and wondering, who will I be? Like we talked about, what will the future of education be? How will this experience transform me? Because, so many things that we associate with are contextual. And so my hope for 2021 is that I can be my best me, so that I can really be a value add to my organization and to the people around me.
Wow, very introspective. It's a wonderful thing. I think that the whole pandemic is bringing that out a lot. Once we can take a step back, it was very interesting in the fall when I would talk with our superintendents. People were just saying, like, I'm up to my elbows in handling COVID cases or safety or and nobody really had time to talk about instruction. And all of a sudden people are reaching out for me and saying, like, hey, have you got some time to talk? And realizing that, what, we really have to stop, take a breath and say, what do we want to do differently for the future? What has this taught us? What lessons do we want to walk away with? And so I love that, Shannon. Thanks for sharing. Who else?
I think
for me, I'm looking forward to more of this collaboration. I'm sorry.
Let's start with Joe and then Brenda. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. More of this collaboration we started on the path with, and more opportunities, because this remote platform and this virtual platform has provided more opportunities for us to showcase what our kids are really working on. So giving them more opportunities, maybe on a quarterly, bi-monthly basis, to showcase projects that they've worked on, what they've been learning. And also in a political sense, it's okay to go there. I'm looking for just like this nation to be in a better place than maybe we've seen in a few years, hopefully. And so that's what I'm looking for.
And Joe, is your staff working with students remotely, so they're connecting with them through remote means?
Right. Yes. So we have some staff that are thoroughly remote, so they only work with their kids remotely. We have some staff that are in the school building that work with the kids face to face, and then we have some hybrid programs as well. So we have a lot of stuff going on, but we're trying to reach kids as many ways as possible. Yeah,
it's a wonderful thing. And Benna, you were starting to say?
Oh, I was just starting to say what I look forward to very most is hugging people again. It just seems like, my life has moved into 20-minute chunks, 60-minute chunks, 1 hour and a half chunks. I'd love to just be with people again and feel the warmth and the hugging and all the good things that I always, it just energizes me to know that I'm part of all of that. I don't foresee that happening right away for sure, but I do feel like there's a certain kind of virtual hugging that we've come to understand and to know.
It's not the same.
I'd like to make sure that we keep maximizing that. I'm very much interested in making sure, the best that I can from my small way, that I don't forget the momentum that I've had from really looking with a fresh light on issues of equity and looking on, for example, having read Caste. It's something that will stay with me forever, and I want to be honoring that. Or, when I'm reading My Grandmother's Hand by Rasma Menachem, to realize that, it's in your body, it's in your history, it's in your feelings as much as it is in your head, but that you have to take action on it. So I feel like all of those things that, from my perspective, the most unfortunate 4 years that I've seen politically, I'd like to see it really turn itself into having illuminated issues that we can't forget, because it would be easy to get okay, so now we have a new administration, we have diversity, so everything's okay. I hope that, for me personally, I don't want to slip back into everything's okay. I want to really keep forward thinking.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I keep saying, we all just need to put out good energy, prayer, whatever your style is, for this country and this world. Just realize, we are one, and it's all about us working together, being together, collaborating, creating solutions. And, even I know in the United States, we're very divided among the states. And I feel like we need to start looking at listening to one another, empathizing, hearing one another's views, respecting those views, and then coming to some place where we can make it all happen together. And I have a lot of faith in the youth that is coming forward to be able to do those kinds of things. And we had a question. I see I have this up here with a statement, but you had a question earlier that said, can we hold the space that COVID-19 is both a catalyst and an inhibitor? Flexibility and the ability to pivot are key. What have you got to say about that, Benna? Can we hold the space that COVID-19 is both a catalyst and an inhibitor? Oh, it's up on the screen. Flexibility and the ability to pivot are key.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's really the whole idea. And I think it's why I feel that the habits of mind have become so central to people's thinking right now. Yeah. Because it's really one, we can't continue to live in polarities. And we have to really begin to ask ourselves the questions of, how do we really begin to think more flexibly? How do we begin to remain open to continuous learning? How do we begin to understand how each other is thinking? So all of those habits, I believe, are so central to how COVID-19 can serve as a catalyst, because we're really listening to one another with understanding and empathy, and we're not making premature judgments about what they're saying. We're trying to absorb it, but that doesn't mean we always agree with it. So right. There is always a tension around it. And I think that to begin to think about how we can think about, I'm reading this book that I love on polarities that says, instead of thinking about it's this or that, can we think about it's this and that? And when we think about that, how do we find our commonalities? I think what you were saying, Joe, about the beautiful way that you had your children begin to think about, it doesn't matter which festival you are looking at. We're all looking at festivals of light. So if it's festivals of light, what's that we all have in common? Well, that's so beautiful, because then it doesn't matter which one I'm celebrating, but the idea is I'm representing a tradition of what does light mean during the time of the winter solstice. So I think it's those kind of digging more deeply to what drives us and to helps us to find each other. Because it's one thing to have the rhetoric, we're all in it together. It's another thing to really live with each other and find respect, trust, and a common space in which we can live safely together.
Yeah,
I'm such a big speech out of it.
I'm a big systems thinking person. And years ago, I loved Margaret Wheatley's book, Leadership in the New Science. And she tells a story in there of, and I don't remember them right now, but like two chemical liquid compositions, that one was red and one was blue. And when you combine them, they literally pulse. The entire composition turns red, and then it turns blue. And then it turns red and it turns blue, and they pulse back and forth. And then all of a sudden it becomes purple and settles. And I thought, wow, like what a powerful metaphor, right?
Also, I don't know if you've seen her book. I don't think it's so new anymore. It's a couple of years maybe. Who We Choose to Be. And one of the things that she talks about is, she says, we all need to be, I love this, we all need to be warriors of the human spirit.
I love it. So Benna, while I have you up on the screen here, because I can't believe it, but our time is about over. I told you this thing flies. I'm going to ask you to end with, if you could gift our audience in the world with one of the habits of mind, which one would you gift them?
Listening with understanding and empathy.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And Joe, if you could gift our audience with one element related to learning, what would it be?
Growth mindset.
Nice.
I might not know how to do it yet, but if I keep trying, I will.
Well, and I love how you were talking before. I kept thinking, you know, we teachers work with students on growth mindset, and we're always telling the students, you need a growth mindset, you need a growth mindset. And then March of 2020 hit, and teachers were like, I need a growth mindset. So brought it home, right?
Very much so. Very much so.
Very much. And Shannon, if you could gift our audience in the world with one thing.
It actually comes from a saying, and I can't attribute the saying, but it's, we are the ones we've been waiting for, right? To take action, and yeah, learning can happen anywhere, anytime, and we are the ones we've been waiting for.
That's the subtitle of my new book, you know, Learning Anywhere, Anytime. Did you just throw that in for me?
I just did. That was absolutely for you. It's just one of those synchronous. That's just so strange. I know I'm under surveillance by Dr. Nancy Sulla. I'm convinced.
You guys are the same person.
Lisa, my co-host and new California girl, what would you gift to all of our listeners in the world?
I would say, building on what Shannon was talking about, creativity. If we're going to be able to continue to adapt and change as education changes, we have to be creative, because it's fun with it. And we want to be able to, you know, be flexible with grace, you know? So creativity, I think, is important.
Yeah. It's, I feel like I would like to gift everyone a global oneness. One of the things we've been doing is developing online self-paced courses, and we are collaborating with a group called Princeton Hive, and they are putting our courses out in India. And one of the courses that we're working on has to do with global learning, because we are global citizenship, because we really, everything that happens in the world is now affecting everybody else in the world. We can no longer just sit in our own whatever city, town, condo, and say, you know, state, country, and say, well, we can just take care of ourselves, because, you know, we can be insular with technology, travel, everything. We know we're no longer insular. Our economies are bound to one another. Our health is bound to one another. So I do think the environment is bound to one another. I do think that if I could gift everyone something, it would be the understanding of a global oneness, that we need to all come together. So Boyd, our director for the night, if you could bring everybody up onto the screen together. And I'd just like everyone at home to look at this fabulous group. And thank you so much for joining me. And thank you, Boyd, for filling in. Carrie, our director, is off tonight because her daughter is, that was actually a funny story. Her daughter is playing piano at the church. And when she came home and told her mother that, Carrie looked at her and said, but you don't know how to play piano. I love kids and the sense of can do. So thank you, Boyd, for filling in behind the scenes with us, and Gwen, our director, who makes sure that all of this stuff works and we get popped around the screen. And I really appreciate Joe, Shannon, Benna, you giving us the time tonight to jump in there. And I hope for all of you who are watching at home, when you rewatch, which of course you will, know that we put everyone's Twitter handles in here. Go and follow everybody on Twitter. Build your personal learning community, and let's see where we can go from here. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And to the audience, I wish you a very Merry Christmas if you are celebrating that this week. Marisa, thank you for being my co-host. And you got it. We always do. We like to end with the kids of IDE sharing a few of their favorite things. So next week, tune in on New Year's Eve for, well, I'm not going to tell you because Kyle will tell you at the end of this. All right, let's roll it.
Some of my favorite things are wolves and rainbow dresses and hugging my friends. And I love candy.
My favorite things to do are play video games, go on my scooter, play with my dog, hang out with my friends, and play with my sister.
My favorite things are my family, my mom, and my dad. And this harmonica. Jingle bell! My favorite things are to play with my dog and feed her, and I like to go in my treehouse and hang out with my neighbors sometimes. One of my favorite things is my mom. Bye. Thanks for watching Learning Unwrapped. Tune in next Thursday to talk about revisiting learning in 2020 or not.